behind this computer. All right. So I think
Can't even sit right.
I think it is recording.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Oh my God, you have such bad posture.
Yo, I've got like I'm ghetto rigging this. I'm got like pushing behind me.
The bigger question is, who has not put a pillow behind them like that before?
That's
Especially on
true.
a couch.
That's
I wonder
true.
if like couches should be made different so that they arch in
Right?
more. Huh?
I know. Well, and to get like the proper camera angle, it's like I had to like move this whole thing forward, and then like because of my neck, I have to like prop myself up backwards.
Yeah.
So.
Does it hurt if you like move it in a particular way?
Not really. It's like honestly, I'm at a point where it's like just the muscles just feel like really
super
tightened
tight.
up. Yeah. But like surprisingly, like I don't have any mobility issues or anything like that.
With it? That's it. I don't know. Whenever I think I have like a pinched nerve or something right here, and so whenever it flares up, then it's hard for me to look in that direction.
Yeah, that sounds
I'm
terrible.
hoping it's just a pinched nerve though.
Yeah,
but it's like
I'm
concentrated
so
pain
hyper
right
aware
there.
of that stuff. I know. Anytime somebody says something like that to me, I'm like, get an MRI.
Yeah, I know. I think you have me a little paranoid too for a second.
Right.
Yeah, because like I was having I think like now I be having like anxiety like while driving sometimes. And so then like my anxiety, I'll have it and it feels like I can't breathe, but I just have to burp. And so whenever I burp, then I am breathing in and the anxiety goes down. But in the middle of it, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, why can't I breathe?
Oh, that like so before I realized what was going on with everything, like that was like driving in the car was a really big trigger for it. And I couldn't figure out why. I thought I was having like wicked motion sickness problems and stuff like that because like I would lose feeling in my hands and like my face would start getting like pins and needles.
Yeah.
And like my breathing would literally, it was like I couldn't inhale and it was like my heart would just like stop at moments.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd be like sitting there, like my mom was driving me around everywhere because it was like my brain was having aneurysms and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, and we couldn't figure out what it was. So I finally go to the doctor, like I'm having these crazy motion sickness problems.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't sound like motion sickness.
Yeah, at all.
No. But me being me, I'm stubborn. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. I can't.
Yeah. I've done that before too, but I think my issue has been my blood sugar. So I have to monitor my blood sugar a lot, and it will drop like while training, right? Very bad. So it either will drop and cause it'll like two things to happen usually. Most of the time my eyesight starts going out, and then when it comes back, then I did like what you can call it. My brain starts hurting for the rest of the day.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it's like throbbing. Huh?
Sounds like you're really dehydrated or like your electrolytes are off.
Yeah, I think it's both because like when I don't stay consistent up in my electrolytes or my sugar, it happens. But then like when it happens too, and like my head is throbbing and I'm driving, my anxiety goes up like motherfucker. It's really bad. Yeah. So like I tried to like
keep car snacks.
I should actually do that. That actually is a good idea.
My whole center console is like stuff that won't go bad in the car in the heat.
For real?
Like snacks for days. Got snacks in my desk, snacks in my car.
Fuck. I'll probably like keep my biggest thing is like Snickers bars.
Okay, those
would melt. Like, huh?
Those would melt.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like I got annoyed with that because one day I tried to open one up after training, and then it was like fucking like the chocolate was melted.
Yeah, I've had that with Clif bars.
Clip bars. I don't think I've had a Clip bar in a while.
Not like the granola-y ones, but they have the builder bars. I was like those for a while.
Wait, are you talking about the ones where you reach up and like it shows that dude like it's like a mountain climber or something?
Yeah. It's like 20 grams of protein or something like that.
That's a lot of. I wonder, would that be considered a lot of protein for something that small?
Maybe.
Huh. That reminds me of what had you start doing the whole like when you were dieting before, you did like a shit ton of like mostly like protein shakes.
Yeah, so I was on like a pretty regimented like schedule and restricted diet. So with being vegan and like gluten-free eating, and then training doubles like I was every day, like 3-4 hours, you know, split up. It was like I would have like a loaded shake in the morning, and then I would go to training, and then I would have like another loaded shake after, and then I would go to like evening training, and then I would eat like a pretty big dinner and like a bunch of snacks at night. So it was kind of like a little bit of like intermittent fasting in there too in the mornings, but also with like having IBS, you know, and going to Jiu Jitsu, you got to really regiment that stuff for the benefit of everybody. So.
But you said IBS. What is that?
Yeah, like irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh.
Oh yeah. You got to make sure you're on point before you go to Jiu-Jitsu.
No, trust me, I understand. I think I had like something similar because like, and it is fucked up because like particular days is like horrible, you know? Yeah. So like before I started on to like 10 plan on Tuesday and Thursday, and it still happens when I go there too, and they be talking shit or whatever because the bathroom is right there at the mat. Like whenever I did the Travins, right when I did there, I have to automatically go into the bathroom. And I'm there for like a while or whatever. My stomach just feels fucked, like really bad. And it's like, but what it helped yours go down? Like how you started eating?
Yeah, so that it was kind of a process, like because I've had the IBS for a really long time. So I originally went like gluten-free and cut that out, and then I started cutting out like red meat and pork because that would just like that killed me. So it was kind of like a process. And then I went vegan for almost 4 years, which I haven't stuck to since my surgery.
Yeah.
It's just because like, oh my gosh, just the food cravings alone during that process were unreal.
Yeah. You feel like you craved a lot of protein, like meat?
Yeah, like right before I even got the diagnosis for everything, it was like a vampire bloodlust craving for like right. And I haven't eaten beef or anything like that in like 13 some odd years. And I still haven't, but like it was such a craving for just anything meat related. I've never experienced that. And I can't, I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of like, so there's been like a good amount of people that are like switching over to, you know, like the carnivore diet and everything like that. And so it's basically like the freaking opposite of like being a vegetarian. But a lot of people are like, that are doing it is like people that have like autoimmune disorders and different things like that. So I wonder if your body, like, it causes a trigger of you like craving it, just like how some women that are pregnant crave meat because like your body wanted to heal itself. And it's like, I need the protein, I need the iron, I need all those different things in order to rehab myself and bring myself back to where I need to be that much more. You know, honestly,
like that's kind of how I was looking at it. Like my body was like screaming at me, you know, like SOS, like we need things that we're not getting right now. And it's crazy because the same thing happened to me when I was much younger, when I was like 23 or something like that. I did get diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and before that happened, I had been vegetarian for a few months. I had just started down that journey, and I kept thinking like, my God, like I must have such a crazy protein deficiency or something, because I'm literally like, my muscles are melting off of me. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Come to find out, I had like a inflammatory muscle connective tissue disease. So like my muscles literally were disappearing on me. But so I thought, but it was the same thing. Like my body just started going into this hyper craving mode. That's like, you know, so I was like, oh, screw this. I'm ditching this diet. I got to do what my body is telling
you to do.
Exactly.
I feel like it's a lot more like a traditional diet too, you know. It's like traditionally, like where's your family from, you don't mind saying?
Like
your background.
I'm German Irish.
German Irish? I mean, I would guess maybe like, because I mean, I guess I would think it's rare, or it's like a place that on the earth where like traditionally they didn't like rely on meat a good amount for a diet, you know, even if it wasn't. So that's something that I want to do like in the future, is not necessarily be carnivore, but like just like hunt for my own meat, you know what I mean? I feel like that's a lot more like going back towards a more traditional diet is like way better for people, I think.
Well, and that's like, so I've read into just because of all the things I've dealt with, like different diets for different reasons, and one of them was like the blood type diet. And so like I'm O positive, and one thing was like about that is they're really geared towards a lot of meat eating and
Yeah.
things like that, like really clean meat eating. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting that my body just naturally goes into these
Craves it.
craving modes, you know, when I'm not including those things in my diet and something else is going on.
Yeah. That's super wild.
I know it is. And there's always like a red beacon, like something's
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah. And then like the science proved it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of supposed to been eating meat this whole time or whatever, like clean
Right.
meat or whatever, and then your blood is even like showing it and everything like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
It's
super
so hard to
wild.
do though. Like I feel like, I don't know, I've done so much research into nutrition and things like that, but it's almost like going into like information overload. Like I'm at a
Yeah.
point where I'm not vegan anymore. I'm still gluten free because that's a
Yeah.
necessity, but it's
Yeah.
almost like I don't even know what to do. So I'm like, I'm just gonna make food as simple as I possibly
Uh,
can and just fuck
What do
it. I give up.
well, what do you like mostly eat now? And does anything that you eat actually like flares up your immune disorder now or no?
Not like it used to. So I've been off all of my medications and stuff for the autoimmune issue for about 4 years now, I want to say.
That's super
Um,
cool.
yeah, but you know, when I originally I got off all my meds, like I had quit drinking, I
Hmm.
didn't smoke, I didn't, you know, I went vegan, I did all of these
Yeah,
super
to
drastic
purify your body,
lifestyle
kind of.
changes. Exactly. You know, and I've reintroduced, you know, a thing here and there, like
Hmm.
chicken and fish and things like that. You know, so it's not like I've stuck to this super strict way of being, but
Hmm.
um, now it's like sugar, like a lot of sugar will trigger the fuck
But
out of
out
my
of it,
stomach.
yeah,
Yeah, dairy products. I don't eat dairy if I can avoid it. You know,
yeah,
so it's kind of all the things that you would expect triggers
yeah,
to be. You know, and things that it's just found that, you know, it kind of impacts everybody negatively.
yeah. I find it funny though because like I think like growing up, like chicken was known as like the safe meat to eat or whatever.
Mhm.
And then also if you're not having it fried or whatever, it's like healthier and everything like that.
Right.
But I found that like chicken more so like flares up my stomach, like it makes my stomach hurt
Yeah.
more,
I
you know.
remember you saying something about that, and it's like that's like one of the only things I eat for like
For real?
protein now. Yeah, so I'm like
That,
waiting for bad things to happen.
that's like Gordon Ryan. You know, Gordon Ryan, I think he was saying that um he was like mostly eating like chicken and rice. As you know, he has
Mhm.
like bad stomach issues that he's
Oh,
trying
does
to like
he?
get over. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
I
why he
didn't know
hasn't
that.
competed for a while because he's saying that the stomach issues like would flare up so bad that it was
Mhm.
like it's hard for him to get through like a training session, you know?
Right. Right.
I'm so
Yeah.
happy that has never happened to me. Like the worst I ever have is just gas, you know, and then I run over to like the side, like here at Independent, they have like a bay door open, and usually
Mhm.
like Chris will like make like open it or whatever. So I'll run over there and try to like make sure it goes outside versus inside or whatever. But there's
That's
has been like a few
hilarious.
times.
Bro, you ain't helping anybody with that. It's all gonna just
No, I had one
you might
instructor
think it
though
helps.
growing up. He used to sit on my face in front of my face.
No.
Yeah, and I had a cousin that did that too, which was like it was so freaking nasty. Like for real.
Men are interesting,
I don't
disgusting.
know. Will you say like no woman would do that either?
Oh, women would do that too. Yeah, I
Will
can't
they
even
do
say
that
they.
to other women or will they do that to guys?
I think they would do it to guys. I've
Mostly?
I've never had a woman do that to me, but I'm pretty sure they would do it to a dude.
Have you ever done it to a guy?
No, no way in hell. I actively like, I don't know. I'm one of those people where it's like I obviously have like stomach issues and stuff, but
Yeah,
I try and get ahead of it like pretty
yeah.
early on. I'm just like, yeah, so this is a thing. Like I'm either gonna have to hit a bathroom or I'm gonna shit my pants. Like we
Oh my
can, there's a
God.
choice here. We gotta make it. You know,
That
and just
reminds
I
me
don't
of
know.
there's several like fighters that have done that where they've shat their pants in the middle of the fight. I think they said that a
That
famous case
sucks.
was like Yoel Romero. He had like these
Yeah.
purple like tights on, right? For his fight. And you just see
Oh
this
no.
brown fucking circle on his ass. And it looked
So you
like he
always wear
like
black
definitely
pants.
shat himself. Huh?
That's why you always wear black pants.
Yeah. So nothing freaking sees through.
Yeah, you can't see anything.
That's why I don't be wearing like white gis when I do like, I don't try to wear white gis because I feel like it's harder to get shit out of them. Like
Yeah,
whether
they
it's a
get
blood
dirty
stain or
anyway.
anything. Yeah,
Right.
really easily. Do you mostly, what color gis do you mostly wear?
Mine are all black.
Yeah. You
I
never
think I
did
have
that.
like one gray one, and that's only because it's a certain elevate. It's like the elevate from War Tribe, and it's like extra stretchy because
Yeah.
I don't remember if they had a black one or not, but I
I
like
wish,
the collar on it.
yeah. I've never done anything from War Tribe before.
I like their stuff, and like for a woman, they're one of the brands that cater to being a woman and
Yeah.
actually having things that fit well.
Yeah.
A lot of different brands. I mean, I know there's a lot of brands now that are that have stuff for women, but it's a lot more difficult, and like trying to find sizes that work for you.
Yeah.
It's
a lot
like, you know,
harder.
the top is either, you know, you get something and it's like the jacket's going to be like a tent, or you can't get your thighs in something. So, but War Tribe does a pretty good job, and you can mix and match and stuff.
Is it the same thing for like Nogi stuff?
No, Nogi is a little bit different because it's extra stretchy, but what you have to watch out for with Nogi is making sure you don't get pants that go see-through when they stretch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh,
Yeah. I've seen that before too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I use, most of my stuff is Virus. I like the Virus brand. And as far as, nobody's told me if my ass is hanging out everywhere, but I'm gonna hope it's not.
Yeah. I don't know, like it was one time, one person, and I kind of was like, I don't know if I should tell that person or not. You know what I
Right,
mean?
like what do you do? It's like, well, can't do anything about it now.
Yeah, it's like that is
Like,
way too, like, you know, you might want to change. Yeah, or
Right.
put some shorts on over that. But you know, a
Right.
lot of people do that. Like when they have like spats, they'll put shorts on over it. I used to do that a lot,
Yeah, dudes
but
do
mostly
that.
for my knees. So like,
Oh,
like
really?
shooting in and like doing a lot of like I don't work up my knees a lot now, but like before when I did, it was like just and my knees were like, my skin is sensitive. It's not as sensitive as it
Really?
used to be, but it used to be super sensitive. So like what it was, and my knees would like go up against the mat, like my skin started scraping and stuff, and so I would get like rashes on my skin way too often. Shit hurt.
Yeah, I get that like with my feet a lot of times. My feet will get really torn up, but not so much elsewhere.
So for you, what do you say your experience been like as a woman doing jiu-jitsu?
Overall good. I'd say yeah. Everyone seems to be respectful. I've never had any issues. Oh, my computer's gonna die. Really bad. Give me 1 second.
You're like, do not kill me.
I'm stuck. Okay. But yeah, so there's been some instances, not many, but just people kind of being a little too touchy-feely, and you know, it's you know, like a dude will be like, there's I'm not gonna say names or anything, but there's this one situation where there was this guy, and like I went to fist bump him. I was new where I was, the place I was training. I was new, and so I was like, okay, cool, later, see you. You know, fist bump like I do pretty much everybody. And he was like, oh, we hug around here, and I was like, okay, whatever. And he stood up and he gave me a hug, and I was like, didn't think anything of it. Right. But after that day, every single time I saw this dude, he would have to give me a hug, and he would insert himself into positions where it was really awkward to be getting a hug at that point.
Yeah.
Or he would like walk onto the mats late and like hug me in the middle of warm-ups. And I'm like, and I'm a polite person. Yeah, you know, like I'm really polite, and I'm just like,
all I imagine though is you like running around the circle, like doing a warm-up, and him like running up to you like at first, and not hurting nobody else either. Or like being dumb as
that actually became a thing. Like there was one, like I was talking to a girl, and, it was after training was over, and he comes up and gives me this like super awkward hug in the middle of our conversation, and then he got really awkward because he sees I'm talking to some chick.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then goes and gives her a hug too. And like, I was like, dude. But apparently, so what ended up happening was
he's like, I've been exposed.
Right, basically. So it was because she was sitting there. He was like, oh fuck, okay, hug everybody. So it was, you know, I mean, I suppose I should have said something, but it's so awkward, and like it ended up turning into a thing where like he ended up like some other dude said something to him, and then he just never talked to me again.
Yeah.
And the dude that said something to him didn't even mention my name.
He just said that somebody felt weird. Yeah.
And then he literally never even said hello or anything like that to me again. So
you probably already knew. You probably like sensed it, because like especially like if a dude like even a particular girl energy or whatever, and then they find out from somebody else, oh, there's somebody that's like feeling uncomfortable or whatever, like unless you're like completely oblivious or whatnot, you can tell because of, you know, that's the girl you've been giving energy to. You know what I mean?
Apparently I'm not the only one though. Apparently there's been several. I was just the new one. The new baby. Yeah, apparently there have been a long history. So
that's pretty
I don't know. But besides that, it's never been anything weird. Like if anything, being a girl in jiu-jitsu is honestly like feeling like you're the last person picked for fucking basketball and PE in middle school every time, because the guys will pair up and you're left standing there like you have fucking leprosy or something. It's like, I'm a human being too. Can I have a fucking partner?
You think even higher belt guys would do that?
They do. I mean, they're nice when it comes to like rolling and stuff, like, you know, and they'll work with you obviously. And once you build relationships, it's a lot easier. But even still, like even after being in a gym for like a year or something, it's like if you're the only chick, most people are very reserved about working with you or rolling with you. You have to actively call people out, and then you look like a fucking jerk or something. It's like, hello, will anybody work with me? Like this one dude at one point was like, well, you need to be more assertive. And I'm like, fine.
No, not really.
Fine. Fucking somebody work with me then. And then I sound like a bitch.
Yeah, that's kind of retarded. I mean, like, I don't feel like you need to be more reserved, like assertive or whatnot. I mean, like, me, like, other dudes, like, they don't have to be assertive to, like, work with me or whatever. Well, some of them do or whatever. Yeah, that can be a little, like, choosy with who I want to work with at particular gyms, you know what I mean? And so, but, like, at the same time, it's not like a, me, when it comes to, like, me and, like, classes I've been in with you, if I ever worked with you or haven't worked with you, it's not because of, like, it's not because of you. It'll be more so because somebody, like, and it's not because you're a woman. It'll be more so because there's somebody I feel like I can work the technique better with. You know what I mean? Or feel certain things better with. But whenever there's like particular situations or whatever, when we did work with each other, I would be like, oh yeah, I'm with Jordan or whatnot, because like I felt comfortable being able to work a technique with you, you know, versus somebody else. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I feel like it's bad when like people have to pull hairs or whatever to work with anybody on the mat. You know what I mean? You know, like to me that's freaking lame. But
you know, I mean, it is what it is. It's and that's the thing about, you know, doing stuff that relies on a partner. There's always going to be kind of a give and take, you know. So it's I don't. It's not like I'm not going to go train or feel some certain way about it. You know, it's just, it is what it is at this point. But it's just, honestly, it's become kind of comical. Like I remember when I first moved down here, you know, to Florida, that gym that I went to, I was telling you about, the first night of rolling, all the guys paired up. And there was literally one dude left. And he was like one dude that was blue belt. He's actively looking around the mat for
like
anybody else. And I'm standing like 3 fucking feet away from this guy. And he's like, I'm just like, what, am I part of a wall? So it's honestly just really funny at this point. Like, damn, y'all are like that. Okay.
Nah, that's kind of like retarded. And I think the more retarded thing, because like, I mean, I like people that roll smooth and that roll and try to do jiu-jitsu, right? When I've rolled with you before, I've like even asked you to roll again or whatever, because I thought it was actually a roll. And I'm not just lying saying that or whatever to look good, but it actually was a roll. So I think when people like are like that or whatever. I think it also depends on like the culture of the gym and also what how you like to roll too. You know,
Yeah.
if they like the roll where it's like a strap and it's always like a fight and everything like that, you know what I mean? They want to roll with somebody they feel like, oh, they can have a fight with, you know?
Right. Which,
me, I don't look
I'm
for
not
that.
trying to toot my own horn, but I'll put up a damn good fight.
Yeah,
I might not
yeah.
win, but
Yeah.
it's going to be a good roll.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was the first or second time I ever rolled with you. It was like a strap.
Probably
And I
the
was
second,
like,
because
oh,
the first
crap.
time we rolled, I was like, this dude is just submitting me every 4 seconds.
I think it was the second. But you also like, you like turn on a switch. You know,
Yeah.
I think that what makes you like a pretty competitor too, is you're better than me like turning on the switch. You know what I mean? And then when you turn on the switch, it's like your whole face and demeanor changes. And it's like, oh yeah, like we're on at it, buddy. And I'm like, oh fuck, whatever. You know? Yeah.
I get that. People say that, like if they're sitting on the side or something, I'll just be rolling. And like in my head, I'm having the time of my life. I'm like, you know, like yeehaw. And like they're just like, you look so intense. And I'm like, really?
You do.
I'm having a good time.
Yeah, you look serious as hell or whatever. And literally, like, I was like, God damn, or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I probably do the same thing and don't notice it at all.
Right.
I have zero. I'm not zero, but I have very low awareness of what my face looks like at particular times. Particularly rolling, definitely. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, I can look like a fucking crazy person and not even know it.
Right, exactly. Because like in your head, you're not even thinking about it. So it's like you're so in the moment that it's not even like, oh, what am I doing with everything else? It's just there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fudge.
But that's not, I don't know. You know, I've had to chill out quite a bit. So I miss being able to just
like zone in. Why do you think you have to chill out?
Because of my surgery.
Oh, okay. Not on ham, you know.
Yeah, not going like 20.
I feel like that's better. Even like, I don't know. I like the concept of flow rolling.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying it, honestly. I feel like, you know, all things considered, I've gotten a lot better because I've been literally forced to take everything and slow it down to like so slow, you know, especially early on in my recovery. It was like everything was like slow motion and like flow rolling. And so you really hit the technique and you really just spend a lot of time breaking different things down and doing the same thing over and over and over because you can do half of the other stuff. So it's been really helpful. And I remember one time I was at Independent, like I'll never forget this. Like it was like karma waiting to happen. Like Professor Chris literally scolded me for muscling out of everything. And I was like, sad face, you know. And then I have this fucking surgery, and then it's like everything has to be technical and slow. And I'm just like, all right, Professor Chris, you win. Can't muscle out of it now.
No, it's way better that way because then, like, when you can't muscle people or whatever, then you know you're still able to get out of shit. You know what I mean? It's just
you found other solutions, which is better.
Yeah, it's way better as it's like it makes the solution unilateral, you know, versus just like particular people. You know what I mean? Like, I try not to do things that it only work on particular people.
Yeah,
that's also the reason why I would work. Well, no, that's wrong. Because I would switch up my game up based on. It's like, okay, so you have like a lot of heavier guys. When they're on top, they work off their knees and they try to pressure into you, you know?
Yeah.
And so they'll try to pressure into you and work something like a body lock pass or like swim their arm through the top of your leg and grab your knee, your bottom knee and shit like that. And so I work a totally different, like, I won't try to like sweep them a lot, you know, because it's way hard to sweep because their like hips are so far down or so bunkered down. I try to wrestle up with them a lot, but not like conventional wrestle up. Like I wrestle to their back and make them turtle because they're like almost in a turtle position anyway, you know?
Yeah. But some dudes want you to do that. They want to be able to turtle up.
Yeah, this is lame as a mode. Well, I say, I know, right? Oh, what is that? Is it called the the fat man roll. You ever been fat man roll before? It's where they like, okay, so you put your arm in like underneath their armpit, and then what they'll do is they'll reach around and grab up above your elbow and just sit through. And when they sit through, it's like you roll all the way over. And so you're right here, you're grabbing underneath this elbow, and so they flip your body all the way over, and then you have to watch your elbow still, because then they can get a Kimura grip and like Kimura the shit out of you.
Right.
Yeah. That's like the one thing I try to watch out for when I force the turtle position.
Yeah.
I like dip my arms out and I'll be like, don't fucking touch my hands, dude.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I want to ask you, like, what are you a professor of, and why you get into that particular like area of study and even be a professor?
Start talking about the serious stuff.
Yeah, why do you like teaching adults?
So I am a professor of criminology, and I have my PhD in criminology and criminal justice. And why do I like teaching adults? That's a loaded question.
Well, first, how do you get into it? Like, how you get into criminology?
Right. Well, it's just something that's always kind of been a part of my life, as kind of weird as that sounds. I had a lot of just with family and personal experience growing up, a lot of interaction with offenders and the criminal justice system and kind of how that works. So it's really like since I was really little, just kind of always been an active part of my life in some way, shape, or form. And then I just started getting really interested in different things, like violent offenders are kind of one of my areas. Violence is one of my areas, and just kind of looking into it on a deeper level. I guess, looking back on it, probably trying to just understand different things that maybe have transpired, for different reasons.
Yeah.
And then, in my own experiences, it's just kind of always been there. So, I did a lot of studying and things like that in like the corrections area. I thought, just for different reasons. Obviously there's a big problem in the US with like the prison industrial complex and things like that. But it was more about the offenders that were in the prisons that really interested me the most. And, how we got to where we are with such a big criminal justice system and so many people being incarcerated for what honestly is kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Or the extent of what they're incarcerated for is, we do have a pretty funky system. And so it kind of just came to be like, in academia, there's a lot of like, this is a lot of great information. And the thing that, why I like what I do, but also what frustrates me about it is that it's, so what the fuck are we doing about it?
Yeah.
So that's really kind of where I started pursuing things, and where my work has evolved up to this point is, here's a problem, here's some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? Because you can look at things all day long, and watch the shit on Netflix, if you will. But at the end of the day, if all you're going to do is talk about a problem, you're not going to, the problem's still going to be there. Yeah. So I'm very much an action-oriented person.
Yeah. Do you ask that a lot, like in your like class assignments for people? Do you ask them in terms of how do they think we can like fit certain things dealing with the like criminal justice system?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a big question. Like, I'm teaching a course on violence right now, and their kind of like end project is constructing a violence prevention strategy. So picking one of the big areas that we're discussing this semester, one of the main topics of violence, and we go from everything from murder, domestic violence, sexual violence, all the way up to macro level violence like genocide and terrorism and things like that. And so their whole objective is to look at these things, what's being done about it, and then what would they do to kind of mitigate or prevent these things in the future. So I incorporate these types of things as much as possible, because a lot of my students do want to go into the field. A lot of them want to go into law enforcement. You ask them, what do you want to do? And they're like, FBI agent. And I'm like, oh, so cute. No, good luck. I'm not going to tell you no, but I'm going to encourage you to look at other options.
Well, what are other options dealing with it outside of just like trying to become like a police officer or FBI?
Right. So I think that's a really big misperception that a lot of people have. Like even when they, they'll ask me, "Oh, you're in criminology. Are you a cop?" And I'm like, that's like one small fraction of criminal justice and criminology in general. So, there's outside of the law enforcement route, which, you can do federal or correctional, or there's a lot of different, even under that umbrella, things that aren't usually considered, things like counseling, going into like victim services, doing trauma care, working in correctional facilities, not on a correctional level. So it's a very diverse area. You could also go into forensics, different things with psychology and criminology are pretty entwined.
Yeah, I would think so, especially when you were talking about terms of like preventative measures and like be able to stop particular violent crimes. I would think that would have a lot to do with psychology.
It does to a level, and that's, I think, another misperception that people have is that all the mass shooters or all the big time violent individuals are like fucking nuts or something like that. And it's honestly quite a low number. Mass shooters actually do have a higher incident level of or prevalency of mental health than we see in other violent areas. But at the same time, it's with things like domestic violence, that's a big issue right now. Just especially with things like COVID, people kind of being stuck inside together, domestic violence rates are up, child abuse is up, just because of the situation that we find ourselves in. And, so it's being able to like look at how we can prevent those types of things, because that's not all psychology. Psychology plays a role, but at the same time, it's a very different dynamic. So it's, again, it's just a part of the puzzle. There is no one answer, unfortunately.
Well, from your perspective, what would be some things that can be implemented as preventative measures, you know what I mean, for in particular in terms of like domestic violence?
With domestic violence, ooh, that's interesting. That's kind of a loaded bag, honestly. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people are not willing to leave the situation. So if it's traditionally, and obviously we see more male on female violence, there is female on male violence or mutual partner violence where both partners are engaging in violent behavior. But if we're looking at kind of the traditional setup of like male to female violence, honestly, I think the biggest thing that we could do is give women more support and resources. And we do have things like that, like domestic violence centers, women's shelters, and things like that, which obviously are really good. But you think about it, you're in a situation where you are probably very fearful of the repercussions of your actions. You don't really have a backup plan. You don't really know what's going to happen if you call the police or something like that, or go down that road. And so they just don't. People just don't. And even, it doesn't even have to be fear. Like, some people are just like, no, I just, I understand this is happening. I just love this person. I don't want anything to happen to them.
Too, as well.
So it's really a difficult thing to address, because you are dealing with these entwined lives of people's emotion and so education and opportunity for people to get help outside of law enforcement avenues, I think would be really good, because people don't want to call, and even if they do call, there isn't a chance that much is going to change, unfortunately.
You said education, but education in what way can help?
Just giving women the skills or knowledge that there are options for them to find if they would like to seek help and things like that. Like, you know, some people they may not even know that there are resources available to them. So education
that's around
is not,
them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So not education in the sense of like learning about domestic violence or something like that, but like resources that would be
able to help them be able to deal with everything. Yeah. I think that's good. I think one of the things, like, I think one of the coolest things about even what we were talking about before, like jujitsu or martial arts, is I think one of the best ways to like help defend people is like to teach them how to defend themselves, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I think that if there was like a readily sword,
yeah,
I think if there was like, you know how they have like adopt a cop, which I think is really good in terms of like how like they like particular gyms, you know, like the independent gym out in Noonan, they have like their own like police officer like class in the morning, you know, exclusive for police officers. So they did like additional training on how to handle situations, how to defend themselves, everything like that. So they can rely on those skills versus, you know, anything else. I think it's the same thing when it comes to like people dealing with these situations too. But I feel like it should be more in depth than just like a or like self defense class. Like you ever done or seen like a regular self defense class? You know, I feel like it's good in terms of like getting some like knowledge, but if you're really trying to dive into be able to utilize it, you know, in a real situation, it has to be like a consistent thing that you work, you know? So there's like
feel like a weekend thing.
Yeah, if it was some type of program where it was like women and people in this situation like dealing with these things and they were like funded to be able to help learn skills to defend themselves, that doesn't mean that, you know, and a lot of times I feel like too, when you have those skills, it makes it less likely for when you do defend yourself, you don't go overboard, you know?
Right. That's true. That's true. Because that's also an issue in extreme cases that we see where there is a pattern of male violence on a woman, and then all of a sudden, you know, the woman's been taking it, and then she just fucking snaps, right? And then that's when things like all of a sudden she's spending the rest of her life in prison because she murdered somebody. So being able to like kind of control and mitigate emotions and respond to things differently, even. And I think, you know, like jujitsu in general is so good for that. It's so good for so many things. But, you know, unfortunately, the people that need, like the women that would need to go to are probably so uncomfortable to do it because there's so many dudes. And like,
doing it.
If you're coming out of that situation, you know, and you're the only girl, like, you know, I've been the only girl. A lot of girls are the only girl sometimes. They're going to be so uncomfortable walking into that situation or that, you know, even if it's a safe place like a gym.
Yeah. I wonder like how even the troubles in terms of even building up a like women's only program too. You know what I mean? Have you like ever tried to like go to like a women's only class and everything like that? And how was it in terms of being able to keep people being consistent towards it?
So I've had like when I was training in Illinois, it wasn't like an actual class that was part of the program, but me and some of the women kind of had our own Monday morning women's class that we would train together in. And it was great. I thought it was really beneficial. You know, we drilled a lot, we got a lot done. So I thought it was really nice. I'm not really the type of person that would only do a women's only class though. I do like, you know, and this is just me personally, I like working with the guys a lot because like dudes are like really fast and really strong and really technical. And so I just think it's more fun for me because you know me, I'm not a little chick and me sitting at a buck 60 or something going against a girl that's 120. I'd rather roll with a dude. Right?
You rather the latter,
Yeah, because I feel bad. I'm like, man, I'm just sitting on this chair.
I do think like even if like they start off and one of the coaches, like woman coach I know, she was talking about this in terms of like even if they start off in like an all woman class, eventually like after like 2 or 3 months they have to transition to a guy class. And it's not because like you can't get fully what you need from like that from that female instructor or whatever. As a female instructor might be the instructor of the regular class too. But it's more so in terms of like if you're doing for self-defense, you have to be used to the body types that you're probably going to be defending yourself against. So if you're working this to defend against a guy, your techniques might be diluted if you're only going up against a woman that's still your size, you know? versus to be able to do the same things proficiently against a dude bigger, or be able to modify things to be able to handle somebody bigger too as well. You know, like your strategy and everything is probably going to change, and what you work is probably going to change too as well. So it's almost like a smart thing. Like, I think it's good to be able to work with all different body types that you never know. You know.
Yeah, you know, and it's nice having like a women's group or something like that. I can, you know, and as I said, like, it's being the only chick has its downfalls for reasons of just people sometimes just not being able to find partners and things like that, as comfortably as you would like to. But you know, it's nice just having kind of like even in a class with other guys in it, having women there as well just kind of gives it a different dynamic. I don't know how it is from a dude's perspective, but usually, you know, being in the like minority group of individuals there, it's nice.
I think for me, it's mostly about in terms of how much like jujitsu the person knows and wants to do, you know? Because like sometimes, like, if I don't want to owe with like Earl, it's the same reason I don't want to owe with a lower belt guy. You know what I mean? It's like the amount of jujitsu, you know, that they might have access to, and then based off of how they come, like if they come like, oh, I want to strap every single time. That's it. It's not a technical strap at all. And then it's like more likely that I'm gonna get hurt or they're gonna get hurt, you know? And so like trying to like keep the injury prevention down, you know? And then there's takes it to my beard to slow
I will
it down.
not work with white belt guys. Will not.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, they're cranking the shit out of me. I would be like, I will smack a motherfucker if he tries to pull something right now. I don't care if this isn't jujitsu. Get off of me. No.
Oh my God. Have you
I won't even do
slapped somebody before?
Do what?
Have you literally ever slapped somebody before?
In jujitsu or in general?
Both.
So I was working with this one guy at the gym in Georgia I went to, and he's very known for digging his elbows into people. And I just I wasn't even thinking about it. I just smacked him on the back, and I was like, bro, stop. And he was just like, I was like, you're the one digging your elbow into me. I didn't even think about it. I just whacked him.
That's funny as hell. I hate when people do that. They do that too when they're like trying to open up the guard. Huh?
Yeah. I said he's
open up the guard.
With it.
Oh, man.
What?
No, I just thought, like, you know, you ever like had that time of the day where you just feel like tired as fuck?
Yeah, that's been like every day for the last 3 weeks. With COVID. I'm like, hey, it's 3:00, time for bed.
Yeah. That's fucked up, especially like switching. Like if you like, because you say you got COVID and a sinus infection. It's like kind of like even more messed up where you like go from one thing to another thing. Are you still not allowed to like go on campus though, even though you have a sinus infection now? Why is that?
No, I talked to my job on Friday to see if I could get back on campus Monday. I just, you know, I was able to move my classes online temporarily, which is nice, you know. But I have to get cleared to go back on campus. And even though COVID isn't a problem, they told me that she was like, I'm sorry, you sound terrible. She was like, I can't let you on campus like that.
People might assume.
Right. And my students know I was out with COVID, so it's not like it's a secret or anything, but there's a lot of fear and anxiety just if people are coughing a lot or are just showing signs of sickness. And so they're very cautious about that. I guess they've had complaints from students about other faculty members who didn't even have COVID but were sick and came into class, and I guess people are just very on edge and uncomfortable about it. So and that's fine, you know. I'm on amoxicillin, like a mega dose of that, and like a Z-Pack steroid pack thing. So realistically, I probably shouldn't be on campus anyway. So, you know, it is what it is.
Have you had a lot of students like basically like call out or using COVID to be able to call out of classes a lot?
My students don't actually do that. They'll go through, it's kind of like they have to report if they've been in contact with anybody. And then there's like protocols in place, and they have to quarantine for a specific amount of time and things like that. So I'll get like official emails if a student isn't going to be there, even if they don't have COVID. If they've come into contact with someone that is, they still have to be off campus. So they're pretty rigid about it. I'm fortunate that I work at like a private school.
Oh wow.
So we don't have to follow the same
state guidelines.
Yeah, exactly, which is very nice for a lot of reasons. The public schools are getting slammed with a lot of things that they have to do and mandates that they have to do that I'm not comfortable with. So
even down there in Florida, because I feel like a lot of people like perceive Florida as being just open. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Florida's a little bit different. I have friends on the West Coast in like Washington and California who work at universities over there, and they have very, very strict guidelines that they have to follow for COVID, mandatory vaccinations and things like that. That hasn't been a thing where I am. Could be part of being in the state that I am, could also be a part of working at a private institution, because the state can't really mandate to us what to do. You know, there's recommendations, but it's a little bit different.
Oh, that's cool. I feel like though it's crazy, as I heard a lot of people in terms of based off of what job they have, they're starting to be like mandated to get the vaccine. And then that's why a lot of people are very on edge in terms of like keeping their job, especially if it's a government job, you know, because then it's like, if they don't want to get vaccinated, you know what I mean? They have to anyway, if they keep that job or whatnot, then they're like, it's like that balance.
Yeah, and I've heard of people like walking out of jobs, you know, like there's been walkouts and things in different jobs. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out. As somebody that's like a behavioral and social researcher, I kind of like sitting back and watching as things unfold. So as bad as that sounds, I'm like, let's see what fresh chaos is today.
Oh my God. Wait, I want to go back to one particular thing that kind of touched on before in terms of dealing with like the mass shooters. What do you say most of the like signs are for? Are you able to identify if somebody's like likely to become one? If so, what are those signs? And if so, also, if there are any measures already established to like preventing that from
happening? So again, it's unfortunately not a one size fits all sort of thing. We can kind of put some commonalities between like who may be more likely. Generally, it's going to be males. I think everybody's been a male at this point, and very low numbers of women engage in that type of thing. So males in their young adulthood, I would say, in their 20s. But you know, the reasons behind why people do what they do, like it starts getting messy. So you can kind of put like a profile around in a broad way, you know, individuals that maybe are looking at like sort of extreme content online, or maybe they're posting misogynistic things or have these views that are either a bit radical in one way or another, or the misogyny is actually like pretty common across the trajectory in a lot of ways. But then, you know, there's also people that are like big loners, you know, but we see even from like James Holmes, the Dark Knight mass shooter, he was working on a PhD. Very brilliant guy, you know, and even the Unabomber had a PhD, like, you know, so it's
Wait, who's really interesting. James Holmes? You said James Holmes?
James Holmes, yeah. It was Colorado, and I think 2012. He went into a movie theater, Aurora County, I think it was, and shot up the movie theater when The Dark Knight was playing.
Oh, I remember that. I was actually like in Africa when that happened.
Yeah, he got like 3 consecutive life sentences, or like 3,000 years. The judge basically said, like, I'm going to give you so many years that you will never ever come out of prison, see the light of day again, basically.
Did they ever find out why he did it?
Interestingly, he, I guess, was harboring a lot of like, he was a case where there could have been some mental issues. He had some mental health issues when he was younger, and honestly, like what some people say is the triggering point of his actions were like a girlfriend broke up with him, like sort of beforehand. So
Right.
it wasn't even, so it was like a couple months and then it just kind of all spiraled out.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was also like a very young, brilliant guy, was working on, had a really big research grant and everything. But then, you see people like the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooter, and he was also young. I think he was like 29.
Yeah.
But he shot up a gay nightclub, and but now it's kind of coming out where he claimed ISIS affiliation, but there's potential that he also had some homosexual tendencies and had gone to the nightclub before. So it's really just such a mixed bag, and it's like trying to find these warning signs, and that's where we come into the problems with things like prevention, because if you start targeting people, especially young individuals in schools, it kind of becomes this labeling, self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're a loner, you're this, you're that, you're the other thing.
You're more likely to do this.
You're probably gonna be a fucking shooter. It's like, ostracize the dude even more, right?
More,
and like,
it's like, you're crazy.
Exactly. So then what's he gonna do? Turn to people that are either thinking the same things or go online. It's like the radicalized, more extreme ideology just kind of starts progressing.
Even more.
So it's difficult to put these labels on people until, unfortunately, they start acting in some way. And that's one thing with the internet right now. People are so prone to just blasting all their shit online that we can kind of start seeing, super prone, right? So, but we can, it's good in that way, because we can see a path at this point, people posting things more than we used to. So it's kind of like, you start seeing those red flags
beforehand,
before action starts happening. There's a difference between having beliefs and even putting words out, even if they're not nice, there's a difference between acting on something and speaking about something. So if you catch people when they're just maybe putting some things that that's kind of when you have to, and then there's different things like CVE programs are becoming popular, countering violent extremism programs, where it's like you catch people in these early phases. I say catch, that's probably a bad word to use. Somehow you come into contact with these individuals at these early points, and it's kind of like having early intervention, like, and that's when you bring, like, psychology and things like that into it. Like, why are you thinking this way? Who are you, where's your affiliation with this? And there's been a lot of really good work happening in that area. And it's difficult because it's not like people are being monitored all the time, and then it's, privacy issues and things like that. So
do you think it's easier with like how technology is nowadays in terms of like the internet and stuff like that, for when somebody is tending to go to a particular side, for people to reach out to them and kind of like push them more along when they have like extremist views like them? Have you seen a lot of that too?
It has been the greatest like recruiting tool that you could find in the world. We saw that big time with ISIS. That's an example, that is pretty common knowledge at this point. There's issues in the Middle East. There's a ton of different reasons why, and they were able to use the internet and basically get people from the United States, even and women, and just a whole plethora of different people join or pledge allegiance to this organization. So it's you're able, if you have some sort of grievance, or you feel like, so with vicarious victimization, it's like you're not specifically victimized, but you relate to a person or group who has been victimized. And so it's like you can either see some sort of vicarious victimization happening and identify with that person or that individual, so you feel victimized, or you have some sort of grievance as well for whatever reason. You go online, you start doing all these searches and kind of going down these rabbit holes, contacting and talking to people that also feel these grievances, and you literally just start like kind of trailing a little further
and further down the rabbit hole.
Exactly. You know, it's not like somebody is all of a sudden like, oh, I think that's a really bad thing that's happening over there, and all of a sudden they're shooting somebody. There's this normalizing progression that you see with a lot of violent behavior. It's normalizing it, and it's even with those radical ideas, pushing the envelope just a little bit more, right?
What do you think in terms of not even like in terms of like something official, like government wise, or like some type of institution stepping in to help that person? What do you think like him really help somebody who's going through something individually, help steer them in a different direction? You know what I mean? Like different circumstances or something somebody does or different things like that.
Outside of like official things. Honestly, I feel like connection and community is a really big part of I'm going to say the healing process, because you're obviously hurt from something. It's so wild what, you know, we need to have solid social structures and support around us. And if you don't have that, you're going to start looking for it in alternative avenues. And that's, I think, where people get sucked into these kind of negative groups and associations. So just really forming these close-knit support systems that are pro-social. And honestly, I think, and I'm not just saying this because I do it, but like things like martial arts, Jiu Jitsu, these types of things, you have a community where you are, and it's very supportive, and it's, you know, obviously it's not perfect, but you build these bonds, and you build yourself and your social group around you at the same time. So I think that is a really important element that is often overlooked. You know, everyone wants to focus on the individual and getting the person help and this and that and the other thing, and that's really important. That's really important for a lot of reasons, but also just having a structure of support around you from other people. You know, I really think it acts as a buffer in a lot of ways.
I agree with that. I think one of the number one things that I've been taught before is like us as humans, we're naturally like communal. You know what I mean? So like you said before, we want like a community that we can identify with, we want people that we can be able to associate with, and everything like that. And it makes it a lot easier. We're starting to trend towards one side to like find, like when other people are like, oh yeah, you know, we believe this too, and then they like get you further in that. But then at the same time, if it's like a different, well, in terms of like something more positive and it's not something steering more towards violence or extremism, that's super good too as well, you know, because that is still fulfilling that I want to be around people that care about me, that like me to be around and all those different things. I feel like a lot of us need that, you know. And then I feel like I was listening to, like I always listen to Joe Rogan, whatever, but he had this girl on his podcast. She was from North Korea, and she escaped from North Korea when she was 13 years old. It's a very like awesome episode and very crazy episode to listen to. But she talked about how like her dad was put into like a prison camp before her mom escaped. Right. And she talked about one of the things that they would do to torture people was they'll put them alone and like basically like solitary confinement, but it was like as like punishment, you know. And then she was talking about how they knew that people were like so crazy without like social interaction, just being stuck in one room by themselves, you know, for such a long period of time. Like they would tell them anything. So she was like saying that they couldn't tell their dad that she was about to escape, her mom, before they escaped, because if they did, they would like torture him in this way, and eventually he's going to say something because number one, he's hungry, he's isolated, he's alone. You know what I mean? And when you're hungry, you're isolated, and you're alone, whatever somebody feeds into you, it can explode and cause you to do multiple different things. You know what I mean? Including like rat on your family without even you being consciously aware of doing that. You just want to be out of the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and sometimes people just want to be out of the torture of being alone. You know, and
and that's why honestly I don't agree with people being in solitary confinement and like prisons and things like that. There's so many negative things that come with that.
Yeah, if you were I know this is a loaded question too.
Oh boy.
What are some of the aspects of like even the prison industrial system that you think should be modified and changed? And what are those things that can actually be
That's not a
changed
loaded
into?
question. I
It's
could
not.
sit on a podium and talk for hours about what needs to be changed. It is a
Okay.
disaster.
Well, tell us some of the things that should be changed.
So there are some changes that are happening, which are very good. You know, drug courts and diversion courts have become a thing, which is I think really a big
Well, what are
change.
diversion courts? You also have to break that down. So I don't know what that is at all.
No, that's okay. So it's basically if somebody gets like a minor drug charge or a DUI or something like that, and not everybody qualifies for it, right? So there's different stipulations for how you would get into one of these programs. But if you're like a first offender and it's like a minor in possession or something like that, or a DUI, you know, like maybe first or second offense, if you qualify, you can get into this program with the diversion courts, which basically is you still maybe have to like do like a couple weekends in jail or whatever, you know, you're still going to have things that you have to do, probation, community service, fines, blah 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 blah, but you're really, the whole idea is if you can successfully get through your probation and check off all the things that they require you to do, it'll basically be like the charge never happened. It'll drop off of your record. So for things like drug charges, that's a really important thing because, you know, you try and even get, you know, student loan help or housing if you're lower income or something like that.
Pop us on the record.
Yeah, and it's like drug charges are one of the things that'll be automatic disqualifiers, and people that need the financial help the most are going to be likely to, you know, a higher likelihood to have something like that. So I think that's a really good thing. What we saw early on in like the 80s and 90s was a massive spike in incarceration for a lot of different reasons that would take a long time to unpack. But we saw this dramatic spike in incarceration rates, and at the same time, we saw the length of sentences that people got also dramatically increasing. And so we saw this huge population increase and people staying in longer. And so the problem with that is if there aren't people coming out on the back end, it's just going to get more full and more full. And more full. And so there's, exactly. So there's issues, you know, there was, you know, especially in the early 2000s and stuff, really bad issues in the 90s with overcrowding, lacking resources and things like that. So now that we're kind of trickling back off, you know, we still have a pretty high population. I think the current incarcerated population is 1.7 million, if I'm not mistaken. So we're down from about 2.2 million from previously. So it's slowly declining. But I really think people that get like drug charges and things like that, it does not need to be, unless you're like distributing drugs or something like that, or like a trafficker. You need to be going into some sort of social services program or rehabilitation program and not prison. I think that's basic. And we see so many people in prison, in jail, even, especially with drug charges. And that's the thing, like with something like, you know, people just cycle in and out. There's and because of the lack of resources, you know, everything's going towards law enforcement and security, even in corrections, you know, everything's going towards new technology and monitoring and different things like that. And there is a limited amount of resources going towards people to actually, you know, get educated, get trade skills and things like that. And I think it's a really big miss that some people are like, they did the crime, do the time, lock them up and throw away the key, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fair. You can have that opinion all day long. But at the same time, 98% of those fucking people are going to be coming back into your community doing the exact same thing. Exact same thing. So you're talking about wasted resources and economics and bringing disease and bringing drugs and stuff, you know, because there's health issues, there's STDs, there's all sorts of issues that happen in prisons, and these people are coming back to communities. And that's another thing, like with the social support thing, if you don't have that support, you know, like what I was talking about with mass shooters, bring it down to a lower level. Talk about, you know, the person engaging in property crimes or drug crimes or something like that. If they don't feel connected to their community and they're always labeled, as a felon and an offender first,
they more so feel like an enemy to it.
Yeah, exactly. They're never going to integrate back into the community, and it's just going to continue causing problems.
Yeah.
And if you want to look at it from a very conservative point of view, that's a waste of fucking money.
Yeah,
that is not a good like investment of your resources, if you want to put it just very basically like that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there is, like, even on about what we talked about before, what helps a lot is like even having a communal perspective on things in terms of how can we direct their progression back into being positively involved in their community when they get back, versus seeing their community as the enemy because of how the community are perceiving them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it becomes more of a versus thing versus, and so, like, which I think is very vital, you know, especially like do you think that like there should be requirements when you're in prison or in jail? Especially, I would more so say prison, because like based off of you being there a lot longer, that you should go through like some type of educational course or some type of like course where you have to learn like a skill or something like that, so that they are basically steering you in the direction of getting like a job when you get out of prison. They're steering you in the direction of being more positive, productive, and having a different outlet on how to do things, you know? Because like if I'm like in prison or whatever for like a crime or whatnot, and I get out and I have no fucking way to be able to get a fucking job or whatever, like it forces you to do the same things that you were doing before that got you in there. You know what I mean?
No, that's exactly right. And there's been research that has shown that like employment, like lucrative employment, is one of the main factors for people staying out of prison, because it's not just enough to get a job. Like, you know, anybody can go get a job, but if you have to provide for yourself and housing, and maybe you have a family, and maybe you have, you know, a partner with kids or something like that, you know, that minimum wage job isn't going to cut it. Yeah, honestly, the frustration and stress that kicks in from just trying to, you know, and on top of just doing that, you're probably on parole or something like that, having to, you know, deal with a parole officer, probably house arrest or electronic monitoring, and going to counseling or anger management. And, you know, obviously these are things the person has to do because they did something to get there. But at the same time, it just adds on to the kind of shit pile that they're already dealing with, you know. And at the end of the day, that job paying what, $9-10 an hour isn't going to cut it. They can go do something else that's going to give them more money right now. So
a lot more money right there. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like even me, like if I you know, I'm not going to try to and do like interview for a job where I'm being like fucking $10 an hour, and that's it. You know what I mean? And then that means you have to work a shit ton of time, you know, and then you're doing nothing but being at work, and then you probably feel like you're in prison or jail again, you know, because your whole life is around making like, you know, pennies and nickels, you know what I mean? Versus actually be able to sustain yourself.
Right. I try and look at it from like a masculine perspective too. Obviously I'm not a man, but like if you just go back to like traditional ways of thinking and masculinity, being a breadwinner, being a provider, feeling the satisfaction of being able to do that for yourself and your family, whether that's a spouse or kids or just, you know, your parents even, it's probably, like, in my opinion, very demasculinizing to not be able to do that. It's almost like you feel neutered, and that's just kind of a perception that I've gathered of you know, other people coming out of prison. But I really feel like, you know, in a very traditional sense, you just feel very castrated if you are able to be that provider, and so it kind of feeds into, you know, having angry outbursts and violent behavior, or maybe abusing drugs or alcohol again or something like that, because you just don't feel like you're accomplishing anything. It's just wall after wall after wall.
And it's a way to try to escape your, like, basically depression dealing with these situations. You know? I think it reminds me of something, I think it was Andrew Huberman was talking about in terms of like how using dopamine in order to help stimulate your ability to do things throughout the day and be a more positive and productive. But you're talking about in terms of like how like the stimulation of dopamine within the body, like within the brain, the reward system has gone down a lot for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because of the ability to believe that they can succeed within life, whether that is
Right.
providing, whether that's like, or even if you don't even have that option, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like one of the cool things about like competing, whether you win or lose, it still is something where it's like you're going out there and you're trying your hardest, and you have something to compete against, and you have something to like overcome, you know what I mean?
Right.
But then also having the ability to overcome those things. But if you like have a system or whatever where it's like it's very hard for you to overcome things and it's constantly something knocking you down, that dopamine level probably on a low, that testosterone
Mm-hmm.
probably on a low, that
Yeah.
depression is going to go up at the same time, you know what I mean? And so you
Mm-hmm.
have so many different factors that's causing you to be able to steer back into like more of a negative direction versus more of
Right.
a positive direction,
Well,
you
and
know?
exactly. And the opportunity to take the easy road is always going to be right there. You know,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get your hands on alcohol or drugs or to go do something you shouldn't be doing. It's a lot
Hmm.
harder to keep trying to climb that fucking mountain, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes one of those things where it's like your opportunity versus constraint. People feel like there's the opportunities are so limited to them that they turn to other things that are more easily and readily available, which is
Yeah.
generally not going to be something that you want to be doing.
Yeah. Hmm. I mean,
So,
it almost even reminds me going back to like more of a like even when we talk about the diet in terms of going back to
mhm,
more like a traditional diet and everything like that. And I don't mean like traditional diet as in the past 100 years or whatever,
right.
because that was, you know, a lot of people have researched and found out that was fucked up in terms of like people paying people to like make the what is it like the what do you call it, the food pyramid and the food web and
Mhm.
everything a particular
Oh yeah,
way
yes
in
it
order to
is.
stimulate people to buy particular things, like the whole
Right.
big thing in terms of like fat versus like carbs and sugars and everything like that. But even like in terms of going back to that, like even like having more of a traditional like lifestyle, like most of the time we spend is like inside, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
We're not out in the sun. Like there's no way in like there's not that much traditional way in which we live nowadays, you know,
Right.
which I feel like it causes so many different factors. There's so
Yeah.
many different ways we have to compete nowadays when it comes to living, you know,
Right.
and thriving and surviving. And then, you know, and it's so many stressors out there. I just feel like it
Mhm.
burdens people that much more and steers
Right.
people that much more in a negative direction. I remember they were talking about how it was this like this company in Japan, they made a requirement for like at least once a week they took all their employees out to like a forest. You know,
That's
they had
nice.
to walk the trails and everything like that, and it automatically like it's helped their stress levels and everything
Yeah.
like that go down, being out in
Oh yeah.
nature. So I feel like you know there should be like a drive going more towards that direction to help people too, where it's not just oh, hey you did a job and everything like that. It's more involvement with being in your natural environment.
Right.
There's a reason why it's a natural environment, you know.
Right.
It's more healing, you know, versus constantly being away from the source and what we all come from, you know.
Yeah, I think like just having phones and the phone culture and the internet culture and social media is just encouraging so many bad habits and not doing things like that. Like I walk down the street, I walk my dog and there'll be other people and they're literally like this.
Yeah,
And it's like you are literally outside. Like put it down for 5 freaking minutes.
yeah,
Look around you. I feel like so many people are just caught up with being on their phones on all of these different apps and stuff like right there and talk about dopamine. That's hitting your dopamine like so hard, so hard, so hard. So when you don't have that instant gratification of a like or something exciting or a video, you fucking
mm,
crash.
yeah,
And it's literally a new addiction. It's a new
yeah,
addiction that people have. And
yeah,
like I've gotten to the point where I don't really post on social media much.
mm,
I like have my cameras blocked out.
yeah,
I literally I am unworking myself in that way
yeah,
because and honestly it's so refreshing. Like
mm,
and that's the thing, I follow a lot of UFC stuff and Jiu Jitsu and this and that and the other thing on different things. And it's like, all it is like either depressing or stuff that it doesn't even, it's not like it's obviously not, real life, if you will, looking at people like standards of beauty and things like that. Or it's like UFC, which used to be awesome, now is kind of like Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to the athleticism? This is Jerry Springer now. It's like,
no,
and it's even happening in the jiu-jitsu community. It's like, damn, what happened to sportsmanship? Y'all calm down.
Yeah.
Take a walk.
I think something you said reminded me too of like not only Andrew Huberman, what he talked about in terms of how like you're positive, like your dopamine in terms of going up and down or whatever, can very much be like, it's very much like, I don't know how you would say it, like yin yang. So to put it, like to say something that actually will like, I guess, get out what I'm trying to like say, but I can't really say it, is Tyson Fury. You know, like Tyson Fury talked about how his high was when he won like the heavyweight title, you know, but then he fell into a very bad depression right afterwards, you know, and so it's crazy. Like we're doing something that stimulates our dopamine like receptors so much, you know, in a negative way, but it's like stimulating it high so we feel good. But like you said, it causes like so much of a crash, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like it made us addicted to so many things, especially attention, you know? And it's like, once we don't get that attention, you know what I mean? Like we might be feeling down and low or like worried and our anxiety goes, you know, up. And we don't know where it's coming from, but it's coming from just the fact that we're not getting the same attention on the phone, which is artificial attention, not even real attention. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the issues too, is like when people rely.
I feel like that impacts relationships.
Yeah, because you're relying too much on how you are on the phone versus how you are in person. You know what I mean? Like, let's say if you're with somebody, they're not really that big of a tester or whatever.
Right.
You know, but you're constantly like, oh, well, they can be testing me right now. They can be talking to me like that. All those different things, and if they don't, you're like in your head is spiraling out of control.
What's
like,
going
what's
on?
wrong?
What did I do? Are they still into me? And it's like, bro, it's been like an hour.
Yeah.
Down.
Chill the fuck out.
I'm still here. I can't tell you how many times I'd have to be like, bro, I'm fucking at work. It's the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not messaging you back right now. I'm doing something.
I won't lie and say I've never done that before, but I think as I've learned that it's more so a me thing,
right,
than the other person. And I learned too that you also have to be good in yourself, no matter what, too. So if somebody's not testing, if there is an issue or whatever, it's going to come to light anyway. So why stress yourself out, you know? And also, why rely on how your relationship is based off of a test versus how you are in person? You know, because like back in the day, they didn't have that, you know, at all. You know, and you even have some situations where, like, I know I had one friend and her dad lived in like another state than her mom, you know, and so he would call her like once a week, and that was it.
Dang.
You know, until they actually moved to be with each other and everything like that. And so he didn't like be paranoid throughout that whole time period, or he didn't be cool and did his shit done. You know what I mean? So like either one or the other. And I feel like that's the issue now, is like we get so worried about what's going on there versus just how to deal with people in person, you know?
Right. And focusing on yourself, you know, like taking that time and like kind of working through your own things. It's like they're doing something, like you do something, you know?
Yeah.
Utilize it.
Yeah. And then like there's so many people too that like to post their dumb like opinions online too.
Yeah.
But when you talk to them in person, they're a lot more like intimate with it, or like reserved.
Right. Well, that's the thing about on like the internet and things like that. Like people are like, oh, who said it? It's like a boxer, like, oh, who was it? Mike Tyson maybe said, like, you know, people are way too comfortable like saying a bunch of shit and not getting punched for it or something like that. But it's so true. It's like you can talk this huge ass game, but in person you're a totally different person.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I think that was one of the most important things my dad ever taught me, was knowing that there's consequences for your actions no matter what, you know, and then being accountable too, you know? And so like me, I'm always like going back to even what Jordan Peterson said in terms of what's your sacrifice or whatever, like what am I sacrificing in consequences for what I'm trying to do, you know? You always have to factor those things in and think beforehand and have the forethought to think beforehand too. One of the biggest things that I had the forethought, like I try to think beforehand, was my perspective on what I want to do as like a young adult, you know? Because like I felt like there was so much in terms of like the society creating clones of, oh, hey, you're a young adult. You're supposed to want to go out and party and do this, that, and the other, and like make their mistakes now, you know? Yeah. But I'm like, why do I need to do that, you know? Unless, like, I had a time period where it was like depression driven in terms of like drinking, whatever. But I try to steer that down. But it's like, I don't want to ever do something because it's like, this is what you're supposed to do at an age. Yeah, I want to more so do something because I feel like it's smart and productive for me in the long term. That doesn't mean I'm not chill at all. Like I like to have fun, but it's like the proper type of fun, you know? It's a smart fun, you know? But I'm kind of like,
no, that's definitely true.
Yeah, I'm a homebody anyway, so I'm kind of lame. I don't like going out.
That's how I've become. Like I used to be one of those people out like every single weekend, being a dumbass, you know, like living my best life, and I'm just like, man, looking back on it, I'm like, how much fucking time did I waste? Just doing nothing, right? It's like, man, I could have been like, I don't know, way ahead of the curve at this point, but you know, it's all part of development. You know, we take our paths. It is what it is.
I actually think it's interesting. I forget which country it is, but they're like a big like Buddhist country. And they actually, it's like one of the requirements for people is to think about their death every day. You know, I feel like now a lot of people, they steer away from thinking about that or whatever because they're trying to live their life and they don't want to think about death, and death is almost like taboo and a bad thing. But it's like they were saying that they're actually statistically some of the happiest people in the world because they actively think about death. They're actively always thinking, what can they do for when they die, they feel happy and satisfied with their life. Because death is a reality.
It could happen at any point. You're going to live your life like every day is meaningful, and every day, every moment. And honestly, like it's crazy to think like I've really gone down that road, you know, like, so it was June of last year of 2020 when I started having the really bad medical problems. Like my breathing was fucked up. I couldn't swallow properly, you know. There was a lot of other things going on. Come to find out, I was like basically like my body was going into like paralysis mode. I was like this close to being in a wheelchair, right? So it was like I couldn't figure out what was going on, and so I was dealing with all of these things, and I would go to bed every night wondering, am I going to wake up the next day? So it was like this constant fear of like, oh my God, like this could be it, you know? And I started doing all these meditations, like, and one of them was like literally like meditation on death, where you do this like thing where you like block out your senses, and it's like this meditation on death protocol. And I would do it every single day for a while, and it was probably one of the most beneficial things I've ever done, because by the time I got to the point of like getting the MRIs done and like, you know, figuring out what the fuck was wrong with me, like 8-9 months have gone by of doing this and just living in constant fear. But by the end of it, I had accepted my death. And that was probably one of the biggest mental changes that I've ever had in my entire life, was just that acceptance of it. And it's really just shifted everything that I've done since then. And then, you know, coming out on the other side and feeling better than I ever have in my entire life, you know, and starting to rebuild. It's like the craziest like mental shift I've ever had, but it's that constant, and that's where I'm at now. And then my point is, like, I've gotten to this state where I think about death so much, and just the gratitude that I feel to even have every single day, that I'm like, I want to just like, I mean, it sounds crazy, I just want to like fucking hug life, you know? It's like every day it's like I'm fucking high, basically. I'm like, everything is good, you know? But it's just really acknowledging just the mortality that we have. It changes the game, and acceptance of it.
I agree with you. I've had like similar in terms of like when you talk about like anxiety going to sleep, but mine's is stimulated from a different thing. So one time when I went on that trip to Africa, we were on the bus, and I fell asleep on the bus, and I woke up out of my body, you know.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was like one of the most, it scared the shit out of me. Because like I literally was hovering over my body, and this was not a dream. I woke up out of the dream, and I was hovering over my body, and I was looking down at my body, and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, did I just die?
Right.
And so I was freaking out, trying to pull myself back to my body, you know what I mean? But that it created almost like this, like paranoia that comes and goes when it comes to when I go to sleep. Because like I'm like, oh hey, there might be a transition where I'm going to sleep and I might pop the fuck out. And what if I can't go back in this time, you know? And so like I've had to like, and then I started having problems sleeping because of that, you know, like experiencing that before I even go to sleep, like popping out or whatever. And so I kind of like had to do the same thing as just being like comfortable, you know, with not waking up.
Right.
And being fine with that.
It's very bizarre
to
accept that.
Yeah.
Very bizarre.
And what helped me a lot too, and sometimes because even Joe talked about like when you have like a trip, like a mushroom trip or whatever, sometimes you have to remind yourself of the trip later on, you know, because they teach you stuff, and then you have to remember the lesson, you know, that you've been on through. So one time my anxiety flared up while like we went off on a river trip, right? And I took some, and I was like so fearful because of that whole depth experience that I was gonna die, because you know I've always had the DC to fear like water too, and then it's like water and I'm tripping, I'm like holy fuck, what if I do something stupid? And so I started drowning in my own consciousness over and over again. And so it was like I was on the surface. It was almost like if you're underwater and you can't get to the surface to float, you're just hovering underwater and you can't get up there. And so then I would like drop down and back up over and over, and then John was like, yo, dude, just fucking chill out. You know what I mean?
Take a moment.
So like when I was told to chill and like they were just laughing, like, yo, dude, you're still here, you know, then this sensation came over me where I didn't feel my body anymore. And then I was empty. But then I felt like a baby, and I felt like a teenager, and I felt like an adult, and then I felt like an old person, and then I was in the grave. But everything felt the same, and I felt calm with it, because it was just like a voice came to me. It was like, life is like the river, it just keeps flowing. And you kind of have to just allow the flow to happen and be good with the flow, you know, because if you're good with the flow and like when you pass on, you become what you are in terms of the energy. Like if you have that positive and productive energy, it helps continue that. But then what if we have like a bunch of anxiety, fear, depression, all those different things when we pass on, you know, that's almost like that's what we embody. So do we transition into that too as an entity? You know what I mean? So I feel like that's one of the reasons why like that depth of question is like having depth on your mind, because it's like, do you want to die anxiety, fear, depression, and then that's your last memory? So it's like you transition into that. Or do you want to transition to like happiness, peace, tranquility, all those different things, thinking that afterwards, you know, and that's like the true heaven, you know, so to speak, you know, versus the other side, you know, because I feel like we're more so like beings in terms of transition between energy versus anything else, you know, and then you have to deal with the same thing in terms of the person having to pull out all that depression. Maybe you have to pull all that out afterwards too, if that's what you're clogged up with. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Like I like the idea of like energy, that type of thing. Yeah, I don't know. You got me thinking about like something else though. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like just like removing like you know, having those anxieties and depressions and things like that, but removing them in your daily life, you know, because so many people go through life with anxiety and depression from different experiences and traumas and things like that. And it's like, you know, how do you unstick those from yourself? And honestly, I feel like going through something incredibly difficult or hard or challenging or whatever is the best remedy to those problems, you know. And it's like it really just puts things into perspective. It's like, especially with something like depression, I battled with depression for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until I went through something purely and genuinely horrible and traumatic that I was able to really hit rock bottom and really just build to something completely different and better, leaving it all completely behind. It's almost like a rebirth, in that sense. And I think, it's hard and it's a lot of work, but I think it's honestly, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't even change the bad experience, for where I am today. And I think that's a big miss for people because they don't want to do the hard work to remove those things from themselves. Because it's scary, it's uncomfortable. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to go through shit. So
what you said reminds me of a quote an elder said to me when I was on like a rites of passage retreat. He said, you cannot have order without chaos because then there's going to be no growth,
Right. That's like, so true. So true.
Like you need that chaos. And that doesn't mean that your life has to be like shitty all the time in order for you to experience growth, but challenge, right. You have to embrace challenge. It makes life more interesting, but then it's not necessarily, it's all about perspective. Do you see it as a challenge or do you see it as a learning? Because you either learn and grow or you don't, you know what I mean? Right. And it reminds me of even like Ifalo do, and it talks about how like if you don't learn your lesson from something, that shit would pop up in your life again, and it's gonna repeat and that's like keep on hitting you on the head.
Yeah, that's your karma. You're gonna relive it and relive it until you get that lesson.
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel like that happened to me. Like something was just like with a hammer, like bashing me in the head for so long, and I finally woke up and was like, oh, duh. Now I get it.
I felt that way too. I think one of the biggest things is just for me was I've always come into a situation where I have to deal with like trust and stuff like that, dealing with particular types of people,
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things for me wasn't necessarily to like reopen the door within my head of trust, I feel like when trust is introduced, a lot more, you live a lot more chill, versus the opposite. And I feel like that's the other thing in terms of even dealing with the internet and stuff like that. There's so many avenues in which to worry about that cause your brain that might cause you to distrust when you don't need to distrust. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm even guilty of that. Like, I don't know if I'm interested in somebody or something and like, they just, like, I see them liking certain things and I'm like,
yeah.
And it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. So you gotta just, but it's like, it's just a fucking like button. What is that? So yeah, it's definitely like the trust thing is definitely an interesting thing. It's like, and that's another reason why I'm really trying to just kind of declutter all of this crap from my life, because all it does is bring like stress and suffering and anxiety, and it's like, but why? Because nothing's really wrong. Nothing's actually wrong. So,
it's like that movie. I quote a lot of things. That movie, 1300 Hours in Benghazi.
Okay.
One of the guys in the movie, he said he was holding a book and it said that all the heavens, all the hells are within you.
Oh, interesting.
It really is, a lot of like what causes like you to be able to fix anything is within your body and within your brain. And so your world, you can be like in shit or whatever, but your world can be totally fine if your brain space is fine, But
well, and that's like there's like yoga in prisons and things like that. Like that's one thing that I'm a very big supporter of. Yoga in jail and prison, because you control your mind. You have freedom in your own mind, even though you're locked inside something, and that's so important. You can take that anywhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll have to wrap up the recording. I think we hit like an hour and 30 minutes or something. Yeah. That's how it happens. It's like it starts off and then all of a sudden, like especially when you hit that like conversation stride, and then time starts to like narrow, and then you're like, oh snap, we already hit it. But
it's been a minute.
Yeah. But we're going to end it right here. We're actually I'm going to press out the recording real quick. Bye, y'all.
Okay.